The stage glowed in shades of deep blue and gold, the warm lighting giving the whole set of the Kelly Clarkson show that comfortable, lived-in feel it was known for. Cameramen adjusted their positions as the band played Miranda Lambert's intro music, a lively country riff that had the audience clapping in sync. Miranda walked out wearing a fitted silver sequined jacket over black leather pants, her blonde hair styled in loose, effortless waves. She looked confident, even playful, waving to fans and shaking hands with those in the front row before settling into the plush chair across from Kelly. The two country stars exchanged warm hugs, the kind that suggested a mix of familiarity and show business politeness. From the start, the energy was bright. Kelly's first few questions were easy and upbeat. They laughed about life on the road, traded stories about stubborn tour buses in the middle of nowhere, and even teased each other about which one could grill a better steak. Miranda leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs, relaxed and smiling. The audience was eating it up. Then, a subtle shift. Kelly glanced down at her stack of cue cards. She flipped one over slowly, her expression tightening just a fraction, so small you'd miss it unless you were looking closely. The change in her tone was equally subtle, but for anyone who'd been in media long enough, it was unmistakable. Something more controversial was coming. "So, Miranda," Kelly began, tapping her pen lightly against the card, "there's been a lot of talk lately about your comments on authenticity in country music." She looked up, meeting Miranda's gaze with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Especially the ones people think might have been aimed at other artists." The crowd reacted instantly, a mix of soft gasps and murmurs. A few phones in the audience tilted upward, recording. Miranda's bright smile faltered for just a split second before she smoothed it over. "I've always said what I believe," Miranda replied evenly, tilting her head slightly. "If people take it personally, that's on them, not me." Kelly nodded slowly, but she didn't let it go. "I get that," she said, "but don't you think calling out unnamed singers as fake cowboys on a public stage might stir the pot a little?" Miranda's posture changed. She leaned forward, resting her forearms on her knees, eyes narrowing just enough to signal she was shifting from friendly banter to defensive territory. "Look," she said, her voice carrying an edge now, "I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I've worked my whole life in this business. I've lived the songs I sing. If you can't back up your songs with your life, you're just playing dress up." The audience gave a collective, "Ooh," the sound filling the air like a warning siren. Even the camera operators subtly adjusted, knowing this was the kind of TV moment producers prayed for. Kelly raised her eyebrows but tried to keep the conversation from veering into outright hostility. "I hear you," she said, holding up a hand as if to slow the momentum. "I just wonder if maybe there's a way to express that without making it sound like, well, a personal attack. You know how headlines work. They'll twist anything." Miranda gave a short, sharp laugh, but there was no warmth in it. "Headlines twist things, sure," she said, "but I'm not about to water down my truth to make other people comfortable. I've seen too many artists wearing hats they bought last week, singing about lives they've never lived, and cashing in on the work people like me put in." The audience reacted again, louder this time, sensing they were watching a genuine clash. Kelly shifted in her chair. "I get that you're passionate," she said carefully, "but some of those fake cowboys you're talking about are friends of mine. And honestly, some of them are here today." The crowd erupted into murmurs again, this time louder, buzzing with curiosity. Miranda's jaw tightened. She glanced at the audience, then back at Kelly, and for a moment, there was pure steel in her eyes. "That's fine," Miranda said. "They can hear me loud and clear. Maybe it'll push them to write something real for once." Kelly's lips pressed into a thin line. She wasn't one to shy away from tension, but she also had a show to keep on track. Still, the producers in her ear weren't telling her to move on, they were likely telling her to keep going. Ratings gold was sitting right in front of her. "So, just to be clear," Kelly said, her voice still calm but her words deliberate, "you don't regret making those comments?" Even knowing some of your peers felt personally attacked. Miranda crossed her legs again, but this time her movement was sharp, deliberate. Nope, she said simply. If the boot fits, wear it. The crowd gasped, some laughing nervously, others clapping as if they were watching a prize fight. Kelly gave a slow nod, her smile tight now. All right, she said, well, I think the industry's big enough for all kinds of voices. Miranda tilted her head. Sure, Kelly, but not all voices are telling the truth. The tension was now thick enough to feel in the air. Kelly blinked slowly, exhaling through her nose, then glanced toward the cameras with that trained host instinct, a silent signal to cut to commercial soon. But the moment wasn't over yet. One audience member, emboldened by the chaos, shouted out, "Name names." It drew a ripple of laughter and shock through the crowd. Miranda's lips curved into a smirk, but she didn't take the bait, not fully. I don't need to, she said. They know who they are. Kelly leaned back, crossing her arms loosely, giving a small, almost imperceptible shake of her head. Well, she said with a slightly pointed chuckle, that's one way to keep a conversation going. But Miranda didn't chuckle. She leaned back too, eyes still locked on Kelly, and for a beat, it felt less like two country stars chatting and more like two gunslingers in a standoff, both waiting for the other to flinch. The band's soft background music faded in as the floor manager gave the signal for a break, but even then, the energy between the two didn't ease. As the cameras stopped rolling, the audience stayed hushed, sensing something bigger was brewing beneath the surface. Miranda adjusted her jacket, still staring straight ahead, while Kelly busied herself with her notes, her lips pressed together in a firm line. Neither woman said another word, but the silence said plenty. When the show returned from commercial, the atmosphere was still charged, and what happened next would ensure this episode would be replayed, clipped, and dissected for weeks to come. When the show came back from commercial, the camera panned across the audience, their faces caught between excitement and apprehension. Kelly sat with her usual welcoming smile, but it had a sharper edge now, like she was bracing for a storm she knew was still gathering strength. Miranda, however, didn't soften. She sat back with her arms loosely crossed, eyes steady, her sequined jacket catching the light like a warning flare. The producers had queued up a lighter segment to smooth over the awkwardness, a game where Kelly and her guests guessed random facts about each other. Normally, Miranda would have played along with quick wit and charm. But now, her answers were clipped, her laugh delayed, her focus still on the earlier exchange. The audience sensed it. The laughter during the segment was polite, but restrained, like everyone knew the tension could ignite again at any second. Kelly tried one more time to bridge the gap. You know, Miranda, she said between questions, I think a lot of people in this industry respect your honesty. Even when it's a little blunt. Miranda tilted her head, lips curving into a small smirk. Blunt's just another word for telling it straight. Kelly's smile didn't waver, but she leaned forward slightly. Right, but there's a difference between being honest and, well, drawing lines that divide people. I've always believed music's supposed to bring folks together, not push them apart. That was the spark. Miranda uncrossed her arms and leaned forward too, her voice firm. And I believe music's supposed to tell the truth. Sometimes the truth isn't pretty, and it doesn't hold hands with everybody in the room. If that makes people uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine. The audience let out another round of oohs, the kind that television producers love. The floor manager's eyes darted toward the control booth, waiting for a signal, but none came. Kelly inhaled slowly. All right, she said, but when you're on a platform like this, you've got millions watching. Words can hurt. Miranda gave a short, incredulous laugh. Kelly, you think my words are what's hurting country music? No, what's hurting country music is people who don't live the life pretending they do, and making a fortune off it. The air in the studio tightened like a stretched guitar string. You could almost hear the hum of the lights above. Kelly didn't back down. I think there's room for everyone at the table, she said evenly. And I think, Miranda replied, "Some folks don't deserve a seat." That was it. The audience gasped in unison, some even clapping at the sheer boldness. Kelly's smile froze, her fingers tapping lightly on the arm of her chair. For a split second, it looked like she was going to respond, but instead, she took a sip of her water and let the silence linger. The silence didn't last long. From the back of the audience, someone shouted, "Name one." Laughter and murmurs followed. Miranda turned her head slightly toward the crowd, then back to Kelly. "If I did, we'd be here all day," she said, her tone edged with both humor and defiance. Kelly chuckled lightly, but the strain was there. "Well, I don't want to keep you from your busy day," she said, the hint of finality in her voice unmistakable. Miranda straightened, her chair scraping slightly against the floor as she adjusted. "You're right," she said, rising to her feet. "I do have a busy day, one that doesn't include sitting here defending my career to someone who should understand." Gasps filled the room. Kelly's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Miranda," she began, but Miranda was already removing her microphone pack, handing it briskly to a nearby stagehand. The cameras caught every movement, the glitter of her jacket under the lights, the determined set of her jaw, the sharp click of her boots against the stage floor. "Miranda, we still have," Kelly started again, but Miranda cut her off, turning briefly to the audience. "Thanks for having me, y'all. Keep it real." The crowd erupted into a chaotic mix of cheers, stunned silence, and scattered clapping. A few fans shouted her name as she strode off the stage without looking back. Kelly sat frozen for half a beat, her hand resting on the arm of her chair. Then, with the ease of a seasoned host, she turned back to the camera, her voice smooth but tinged with tension. "Well, that was Miranda Lambert, everybody." She forced a smile, glancing toward the side of the stage where Miranda had disappeared. "We'll be right back after this." The band played them into another commercial break, but the audience wasn't quieting down. Even during the break, they buzzed with whispers, replaying the confrontation in hushed tones. Behind the scenes, the hallways were just as alive with energy. Miranda moved swiftly toward the exit, her publicist trailing behind, phone in hand, already fielding calls from reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the walk-off within minutes. A stagehand held the door for her, looking a little stunned. "Big fan," he mumbled, but she just gave him a quick nod and kept walking. Meanwhile, Kelly was in her dressing room between segments, her producer leaning against the counter. The producer began, searching for the right word. "Messy," Kelly offered, peeling off her in-ear monitor. "Gold," the producer said with a smirk. "Social media's going to eat this up. We'll be trending before the next segment's over." Kelly sighed, rubbing her temples. "Yeah, but at what cost? I don't want the show to turn into a tabloid circus." The producer shrugged. "Sometimes you don't get to choose. Besides, you held your own." Sure enough, by the time Kelly returned to the stage to finish taping, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok were already ablaze with clips from the confrontation. The hashtag Lambert storms off was climbing the trending list. Fans were taking sides, some applauding Miranda for speaking her truth, others praising Kelly for keeping her composure. One clip in particular, Miranda saying, "If the boot fits, wear it," was already racking up thousands of retweets. Someone had even turned it into a meme, pairing it with pictures of celebrity cowboys in sparkling boots. By the end of the day, every major entertainment outlet had the story. Headlines ranged from "Fireworks on Kelly Clarkson's show" to "Miranda Lambert walks off in fiery confrontation." Comment sections were battlegrounds of opinion, with fans dissecting every word, every gesture, and every glance between the two women. Miranda, for her part, didn't seem interested in damage control. That evening, she posted a simple message on Instagram. "Greater than, always speak your truth. Even if your voice shakes." The caption was accompanied by a black and white photo of her boots, worn, dusty, and unmistakably real. Kelly, meanwhile, addressed the incident briefly on her next show. Sometimes conversations get heated, she told her audience. But that's the thing about live TV, you never know what's going to happen. I'll always respect someone who stands by what they believe, even if I don't agree with them. The episode became one of the most watched in the show's history, pulling in ratings that even the producers hadn't predicted. For weeks afterward, people continued debating whether Miranda's walk-off was justified or unprofessional, whether Kelly had provoked her or simply done her job as a host. But for those who were in the studio that day, one thing was clear: it wasn't just television. It was two strong personalities colliding in real time, and nobody would forget it anytime soon.